Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mathew Frith. I work for London Wildlife Trust. We are 40 years old this year, one of the 46 wildlife trusts working throughout the UK. Our area of interest covers Greater London, and therefore implicitly we are basically focused on urban nature conservation and the relationship between nature and people in this magnificent city. We've undertaken a lot of work on surveying, and it's been very kind of interesting to hear this morning the whole issue about the relationship between people and nature. It's core to the work of the trust, and in terms of the kind of policies that we've got in place in London today, such as the protection of sites of importance for nature conservation and the areas of deficiency and measures to try and reduce those areas of deficiency to access to nature, were all basically fundamentally started from when the trust undertook a 2-year survey of London back in 1984 and 1985. A team of 8 people basically working on a piece of work that was delivered to the Greater London Council, as was then, and then that started to shape the policies which we still enjoy today. But of course, London is under increasing pressure. We do our own surveys on our nature reserves, but we also have undertaken survey work involving the public. You might argue these are kind of populist or popular, but it was a way engaging with the public. And in the 1980s, we did bee spree, we did owl prowl, we did kestrel counts, and more recently, we did dragonfly detectives, which is being encapsulated in this report. And I've got copies here today for those of us in the room to take away with you. I'm going to focus today on perhaps as charismatic a species as the beaver, the magnificent thunderbird of the suburbs. Now, this was in 1996 identified as a UK biodiversity priority species by the newly formed Biodiversity Action Plan. And English Nature was given the task of leading this work, and they decided to then involve other organisations to try and take actions to conserve it, because at a global level, the Canis cervus, what we call the stag beetle, was globally threatened. It was declining across Europe, and it was appearing to be declining across the UK. However, in 1997, we and a few other organisations, notably the London Borough of Bromley, had already started work engaging the public in asking them to tell us where they saw stag beetles, utilising the technology of the time, which is basically the Royal Mail. So we basically plastered leaflets around libraries, community centres, we put adverts in the newspapers, we went onto the radio, and we asked people to tell us where they found stag beetles and to let us know. At the time, English Nature convened a meeting with People's Trust for Endangered Species, who were then given the job to undertake the national work. And we had a meeting in this esteemed building with specialists on beetles, coleopterists, I believe they're known. And we were then, the discussion was, how do we get a better understanding of where beetles are found in the UK? So myself and Alistair Hayes, who's now with the Royal Parks, but who was with the London Borough of Bromley at that time, said, we asked the public, and the coleopterists in this esteemed organisation, the museum, said, we can't trust the public. You cannot trust the public to identify beetles. We said, well, we've already done it. So this was our survey. London Borough of Bromley had an additional incentive with a £50 reward book voucher to encourage people to send details of where they found beetles. And this is one of a number of species that they were using to get energy into their newly developed biodiversity action plan. And of course, we recognise that there are always going to be possibilities of misidentification. but we thought that the numbers of records being sent in would give us a better, a good standard of correlation between where beetles are seen and the accuracy of identification. And at the same time, we developed an advice note because at that 1998, English Nature, through DEFRA as it was, listed species onto the Wildlife and Countryside Act. So it is formally protected. But just for clarification, it just means you can't sell a stag beetle because there was a real threat from beetles being collected, particularly for the Japanese market, where they are a highly esteemed status symbol. Over the course of 2 years, and this was before GiGL was formed, GiGL was part of the trust at that time, using the data technology we had, in the course of 2 years, those amounts of records came through, already beginning to show a rather bizarre distribution of this species across London. And as a South Londoner, that makes me very happy. 1998, People's Trust for Endangered Species had undertaken their first national survey, and then in 2002, there was the second national survey of the Great Stag Hunt. And as you can see, still see here, we're relying on paper records. Web technology was still very crude to enable that kind of easy input of data into the system. There was further work undertaken at national level to identify areas across the country which will be internationally important for stag beetle, and 3 areas were selected in London. These are special areas of conservation, which from this map here are Richmond Park, Wimbledon and Putney Commons, and Epping Forest. Now you might note, if those are the areas which have been identified for protection at a European level for stag beetle, and how they correlate where stag beetles appear to be found, might suggest there's a bit of a problem. Of course, you know, the whole way that we designate SACs in this country prior to Brexit was that they had to fit over existing SSIs. They weren't based on nature at all. They were based on the existing frameworks for natural protection, which is, to me, rather bizarre. And I remember having these discussions with English Nature at the time. In the middle 2000s, we continued our work, technology was improving, and then as GiGL had become a separate organisation working very closely with them, this is examples of how data was being presented back in 2014. And now we have our portal on our website. This has gone through various iterations over the last 12 years. And just a very quick run through, it takes you a bit of introduction to the species. I'm not going to detail that because you all know what a stag beetle looks like, female and male, and what a lesser stag beetle looks like. And then it pings you through to the GiGL website, and there's a bit of identification techniques there, a little bit of biology, bit about the grubs, etc. And then I won't detail the rest of the thing, but what we've got now is, although that only takes us to 2018, is a reasonably accurate map from 1944. And when we started this work, I think there were less than 20 records of stag beetle in London. There are now several thousand. At an international level, there's been work undertaken to try and get a better understanding of stag beetles and using much more, shall I say, scientifically rigorous data and approaches to assessing their distribution and their abundance. And a lot of this work in the UK has been led by Dr. Deborah Harvey at Royal Holloway. And there's also a fantastic researcher in Germany, Maria Fremlin. And you can Google her name to find out the amazing amount of work they're doing. I'm not really focusing on this because from our perspective, yes, understanding the biology of stag beetle is important, but it's the protection and the conservation of the habitats that stag beetles need, which is more critical. And when it decides to move on. Nope. It basically is about leading into the new parkland furniture, which you probably have noticed over the last 20 years has proliferated with loggeries. So that advice note that I showed you that we published in 1999, I think it was, basically suggested there are simple things you can do in your garden, in your housing estate, if your housing estate manager will allow you, in your park, your nature reserve, which can create habitat for stag beetles. It's very simple. You put logs in ground. And I basically take a lot of pictures of stag beetle loggeries around London. They are varying qualities, varying size. There's some really crappy ones. There are some amazing ones. This was undertaken by corporate volunteers in the Royal Parks only about 3 weeks ago. And we even have some bizarre furniture celebrating the species in many parks. What I find more interesting, though, perhaps, is the images and the records and the videos that people send us through the surveys and the comments they have, either through Twitter, through Instagram, or direct emails. People are fascinated by these beetles. And this was a set of, I mean, basically 12 images in whole of this guy, Nigel Neave, had basically taken a male stag beetle and taken these amazing photographs on a glass plate. He sent them through. Are you interested in these? I find this beetle amazing. And again, this fantastic image showing that London really is a national hotspot for the beetle. And it faces a lot of, it still faces a lot of pressures, but we have, what I would argue, the public on our side. At a national level, the Wildlife Trust are working on a campaign called Action for Insects. And obviously the work that we've been doing is part and parcel of that. But it goes broader than just focusing on loggeries. It's about looking at the way that we manage our landscapes of insects as a whole. And when I talk about insects, I'm talking about invertebrates per se. So Pesticide Free London is an Action by Pesticide Action Network. And that's kind of embedded in the Green Flag Award. Now, this has been the National Parks and Greenspace's quality benchmark since 1996, I think, when it was first established, basically by English Nature as was and Pesticide Action Network. And it's ever increasing in terms of adoption. It helps drive up quality of our parks and green spaces across the country. But 2 fundamental principles are within that standard. One is about to move to zero peat use. I'm not going to go into that, but basically, if you think about how parks used to be used and bedding was using peat compost, is to move to zero peat use. Obviously, now there are significant carbon benefits for doing so, but fundamentally is to move to zero herbicide and pesticide use because of the impacts on invertebrates, impacts on soils, impacts on the wider ecosystem, and of course, impacts on us. So, thank you very much indeed.